Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. Today we are from Group 5. We'll have presentation regarding on country risk analysis in Russia. Country risk is risk that denotes possibility of foreign government due to its economic recession on financial obligation. As we know, Russia was the fastest economic growth in the world. During 2010, Russia faced negative impact on their GDPs because of oil prices crisis. However, during 2011, they faced an increment in their GDPs because of high demand in exported commodities. Unfortunately, in 2012 until 2015, their GDPs keep decline because of reduction in agricultural products, 2013 Ukraine crisis, and also rubles devaluation. Fortunately, in 2016 until 2018, their GDPs have rise back because of Urals crude oil have highest price to $79.6 per barrel. And in 2019, their GDPs have falling down back because of COVID-19 outbreak. Russia was imposed strictly lockdown in their country and it was cut their production.
Political environment in April 2010, Russian been shocked about the plane crash tragedy in Russia. The protest movement that happened in Russia being affect politically in Putin area. As a result, Putin win the election as a new president to Russia. The Ukraine crisis will happen in year 2014. President of Ukraine rejected the European Union deals and that being affected to the Russian in 2015. The first airstrike handled by Russian to the Syria that was target Islamic countries. 2016, the US government being announced that Russian being arranged and planned the hacking to the Democratic National Committee were investigating the issue and being linked to the Trump and Russian campaign. In 2019, Africa and Russia were working together toward their partnership relationship.
The financial crisis in Russia is between 2040 and 2050 that was attributed to the heavy deflation in the second half of 2014 of the Russian ruble. Failure to support Russia's economy has forced investors to leave their countries. As the price of ruble will drop, Russian financial instability will be a source of a concern. The major sources of loss of confidence for the Russian economy is the 2040 fall in market price of oil that is over 50%, while in 2050 the demand for real wages in decline goes along with the GDP increasing level expected to be negative for the first time. The second source is after Crimea had been invaded by Russia and the Russian military interference in Ukraine as a consequence of an international financial penalty levied on Russia. International sanction leads to the depreciation of rubles and pressure the exchange US dollar or other foreign currency on the free market. In order to avoid bankruptcy and recession from happening in Russia again, central banking intervention is required to regulate the economy. The International Monetary Fund has been at the forefront of organizational effort to help Russia to develop a sustainable and successful common economy. There are reasons why the financial industry has a problem, which are why it tends to expand rapidly through mergers and decrease sharply in oil prices as they largely depend mostly on oil. He said that many Russian banks face a banking collapse. According to the International Monetary Fund's mission visited Russia, he reported that international sanctions are delaying foreign investment in Russia and limits the country's international business penetration. Other than that, Moscow is credited with the allegiance to be a prudent fiscal structure that promotes economic development by reducing uncertainty, regulated inflation, and exchange rate trust.
Natural resources are important to the Russia economics. The World Bank value that Russia's natural resources are at USD 75 trillion, accounting 30% of the entire natural resources in the world. Russia is second biggest contributor of world dry natural gas supply. Moreover, Russia is one of the biggest gold, nickel, and platinum supplier and exporter. Russia is placed at third biggest gold supplier and has the fourth highest stock of gold. Given the white side, because of unfavorable climatic conditions, Russia has comparatively little arable land. Nevertheless, the country dominates 10% of the entire land in this world and is one of the top cereal exporters. Industry constitutes 32.1% of the Russian GDP with 27% of worker hiring. Chemistry, metallurgy, engineering, architecture and defense are the most advanced industry in the country. Russia involved in regime changes and coalition government. Russia has taken both direct and indirect measures to change, overthrow or maintain international regime. For the Soviet Union and Russia clashes in various country national elections. One study found that 36 interventions were taken in international elections between 1946 and 2000 by Soviet Union and Russia. The current political ruling party of Russia is United Russia. United Russia is the biggest party, which has 74.44% of the State Duma seats. Vladimir Putin is the president of Russia. He was charged for 17 years, re-elected again in May 2018 and started a new 6-year term as president. The current premier is Mikhail MOHD, a representative of non-partisan politicians. 7 presidential and congressional elections have been held since 1990, just one in 1996. A second round was required in the 7 presidential elections. The most memorable regional crisis in that country was Russia and Chechnya conflict. The displacement is not described as a major factor in that period's event by other outlets, but rather focused on Chechnya worsening of the domestic environment, hostile policies, and Russia domestic political ambitions. The low-level rebellion persisted, especially in Chechnya, Ingushtia, and Dagestan, after the Second Chechen War ended during May 2000. A variety of terrorist attacks have taken place in Russia, including the 1999 including the explosion in 1999, 2010, and 2011, and also the hostage crisis in 2002 and 2004. This is because this is a consequences of which Z extreme Islamists and other North Caucasian states have been apprehended accountable. They are demanding that the independence of Chechnya and also the withdrawal of the Russian troops.
The Belt and Road is closely connected with the Eurasian Union, which is conducive to the development of China-Russia strategic relations. Russia has been suffering from the international financial crisis. The Belt and Road has improved Russia's economic difficulties. However, every coin has 2 sides. The Belt and Road has also the negative impact on Russia. In terms of economy, Russia is not as good as China, so it cannot be said that it's weak on economic issues. Russia has established a strong anti-money laundering, terrorism financing legal framework centered on financial intelligence agencies. However, corruption, bribery, fraud, drug trafficking, and tax evasion can still bring a lot of profits. According to the mutual assessment of the Russian Federation, 5 geographical locations can pose a high risk on economic activities such as corruption, organized crime proceeds, financial sector, large amounts of cash or informal economics. Terrorist fighters pose a high threat, mainly represented by the armed groups.
In a nutshell, we found that Russia have a high country risk. This is because their economic risks are at moderate level, while the financial and political risks are quite high. For the political, they have their regional crisis that give long-term bad impact to the country, like Chechen War. And for the financial, they are more exposed to the black money transaction and have high risk for money laundering activities. And for the economic environments, Russia's long-term economic growth seems diminished due to the poor business environments and also their energy export dependency.